I am so excited. December 31st, 2024 is coming to an end. We're ringing in the new year with the Unfold and Blossom course. Welcome, Pam, Carmen, Catherine, Colleen, Helen, Jenny, Jill, Kathy, Liz, Marie. I know that this time didn't work for everybody, but from my perspective, for the times that you are able to show up, you will hear what you need to hear, and the recording will be available. So, no worries there. You will not miss anything. I just know that being there live, kind of soaking up the energy, really does make a difference instead of watching the recording. So, if you can just get a little bit of that energy, then it's already a great thing to do. And while I was looking for my material for the Unfold and Blossom course, which I haven't done in a while, I found actually a testimonial from a student of mine. And her nickname is Tink, and her last name is Bell. Who wouldn't want to have that name? And she said, because of the Unfold and Blossom course, I am able to face changes, to imagine a different life than I have now. Thank you for giving me strength and confidence. And that's really what this idea of unfolding and blossoming is all about. And one of my favorite quotes, it really centers around this idea of unfolding and blossoming. And I'm going to pull it up here real quick. So he do 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 do. The day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And that is Ani Nin. And to me, that kind of, I would say, describes my life. At one point, it just was too painful to not open up. And we all know that there is a perceived risk in opening up. And as long as we remain closed, as long as we shelter our heart, as long as we wear a mask, as long as we pretend somebody that we're not, there will only be limited connection with our horse because our horse feels what we're doing. So, this whole idea of genuine connections, horsewomanship, is really part of that idea of unfolding and blossoming, coming into our own, and really coming from that perspective of honoring our qualities as a woman, as a female, and that we're using these female leadership qualities in our horsewomanship as well as our everyday life. And this horsewomanship actually comes from Barbara. That was Barbara's idea. I did not have that idea. She said, you really need to call it horsewomanship. Barbara will have a heart cath surgery today. So, in honor of Barbara, we're doing this workshop and this 2-day course today. Send your prayers, send your healing energy, and your positive thoughts. That happened, something that happened very quickly yesterday, absolutely unexpected. She was very lucky that she was at her physical therapist's office when it happened, and she received excellent care. The story would have looked a whole lot different if she would have been by herself at home. So our prayers, our healing thoughts and energy are going out to Barbara, who coined the horsewomanship idea. And when it comes to the genuine connections, that S at the end, it's really about that we're connecting with our horse, but in that process, we're connecting with ourselves. And the way we perceive others and the way we interact with others, those connections will also change and have certainly the ability to fortify and to create ripples out, which is the whole idea of the Guardians of the Horse membership. This idea that We are facilitating change for and with each other, for our horses, with our horses. But that change ripples out into the horse industry, and we can facilitate positive change and transformation in the horse industry, which, in my opinion, is dearly needed. My first real aha moment as a Pirelli instructor, which I used to be. I was really rather successful. I was with my friend Teresa Fincher. We were the top two instructors out of over 120 two-star instructors. I had a $14,000 scholarship to become a three-star instructor. And my story as a Pirelli instructor came to a screeching halt. For one, when I was sitting with my mom, and my mom had a brain aneurysm and was not conscious anymore. And I thought about what was it that my mom wanted to do in her life? What did she do? And what did she want to do that she never got to do? And my mom always wanted to jump out of an airplane, which, if you know my mom, it's kind of a. My mom was the lady with the high heels, with the very fancy clothes, with the always pedicured and manicured fingernails and toenails, with the absolutely styled hair, with perfect makeup. She would never come out of bed or out of the bedroom without the makeup on. And here she wanted to jump out of an airplane, right? She never got to do it, but what that really brought home to me was that, as so often, right, when we have a loss or when we have a major change in our life, that we come to think about, well, what is it that I want to do? What is okay in my life and what is not okay in my life? And a huge part of this Unfold and Blossom course is that we're going to start a little bit digging. We always want to celebrate all the wonderful things that are happening in our life, and we want to take inventory what's currently not working. And I realized that it wasn't working for me anymore to be a natural horsemanship instructor. And I had to come to the terms that all the money, all the blood, all the sweat, all the tears that I had literally put into that education and into my business weren't serving me anymore in the way I wanted to interact with horses, in the way I wanted to interact with others. And one of these experiences that I had, I was filming my level 4 Liberty audition with my JB, with my Morgan. And he kind of went around in a big circle without me asking. And he had his ear on me, and he had a perfect bend on the circle towards me, and he put so much effort into his trot. And then, I asked him to come back to me, and he had his ears forward and his eyes on me, and he had this beautiful trot, and he came running to me and stopped in front of me, and it just made my heart melt. And that disqualified me from level 4 because my horse left me and didn't keep the connection. And I was absolutely devastated, number one, because that was my livelihood, right? I had to have that level 4 in a certain period of time. But I also came to the realization that my horse never disconnected. He just created a little bit more distance that he needed in that moment. And it's not about control, and it's not about making our horse stick around. It's just having that connection and that communication between us and our horse that makes all the difference. And that's where my idea of there has to be a different way to approach this was born. And I was lucky enough that I could just take a break and sit back and be with my horses and just kind of mull over what was working and what was not working. And I literally started with what wasn't working for me anymore to see what changes I wanted to facilitate. And I just want to share my screen here real quick to give you a little bit of a outline for this morning's sessions. I want to talk about that female leadership style that really centers around, or my program centers around nowadays. And why my program is not natural horsemanship, and the details that you need to move, that you need to know to move away from pressure control and treat-based training techniques. And there is one unconscious pattern that in general holds us back in everyday life as well as our horsewomanship. And I want to talk about that pattern and create some awareness around that pattern, because is in direct correlation to what I started to say in the beginning when I was talking about how we need to unfold and blossom and open up to really have the connection with our horse that we're dreaming about, but also to bring positive change and transformation into our horsewomanship as well as our everyday life. And if at any given time you have a question, feel free to pop it in the comment section. I will also give time to answer questions. And we will also have some quiet time where everybody can start to reflect a little bit on the subjects that we're talking about. And usually I know all of this by heart and I don't need notes, but I haven't been able to sleep really well the last few days. So I made myself notes that I don't go too much off track. So let me make room here on the board. And this whole idea of female leadership, to me, it's a really interesting subject, because when I started to use that word horsewomanship, I had a lady contact me and she said, "Isn't that a little bit over the top? I mean, do you really have to call it horsewomanship? I know a lot of men that are great horsemen." So my thoughts on that was, number one, I did not eliminate the word man, right? Woman. There is still that word man in there. And the other thing is, we have called it horsemanship for such a long period of time. Has ever anybody questioned this idea that it's called horsemanship? Not so much, right? When we're looking at the natural herd and the idea that for the longest period of time, when it came to horses, right, it's a very patriarchal system, just like our society is, very patriarchal. And the idea of pressure and control is very much alive and was founded mostly around that subject, how horses were used previously, which was as a tool in war, as a tool in agriculture, as a tool for transportation. And the desire to get 5,000 men and 5,000 horses ready for battle as quick as possible certainly had a huge impact when it comes to anything horse, right? When I look at my evolution when it comes to being around horses, I started in a very traditional German riding school that had quite a bit of that military drill still in it, right? And I was just put on a horse as a kid when I finally got to sit on a horse, because back then my pediatrician said that horse riding is bad for children. So I had to wait for several years until he okayed that my spine was developed enough for me to actually sit on a horse. And I was just put on a horse and was told to ride into the arena. And who can, no barking. And who can relate to having your first experiences taking riding lessons? Has anybody actually had lessons about horse language, about how horses interact with each others, what their fears, what their concerns are before you really got into horses or before you started riding? Catherine has to leave. We'll see you later. This idea that horses are so intertwined with riding, right? For me, that's where the horse industry is making that really that first big mistake, that we're starting with the idea of riding. And so this idea of female leadership, and that our society, as well as horse training in general, is based on patriarchal ways, is really an important subject to consider for us women, and what we want to do and what we don't want to do. Because what I regularly hear from students is, I never liked it, but I was told to do it, so I did it. Who can relate to that? Well, I have to show my horse who's boss. My trainer said I have to be kind of mean. That's what my horse needs in order to behave. Don't let her get away with it because she's just trying to get out of work, right? You're too soft. You need to toughen up, right? Or get on your horse even if you're shaking your boots, John Wayne style, right? Even if you're shaking the boots, you get on that darn horse. For me, that's why 75%, according to Horse and Rider Survey, of horse owners have confidence issues with horses. Because when you control a horse, when you dominate a horse, when you use pressure, the horse will stay in a certain state of brace, tension, stress, anxiety, fear. And that's where the scary experiences and the accidents happen. That's in the end how easy it is. And from my perspective, we can go to the mailbox, right? And we can stumble and fall. What are the chances? That's how our interactions with horses should be. And we can certainly apply this idea of being conscious of what we're doing and what we're not doing and why we're not doing it in our everyday life. On average, we humans have an attention span of, depending on where you look online, 2.4 to 8.2 seconds. And the rest, we're living either in the past or in the future. And your horse needs you to be right here. And so everything that we will talk about this weekend is about how can we be here? Why using the treasure chest of the past, right? In my opinion, this is a treasure chest. Right? Some people will tell you, oh, just forget about the past. But here is where we can learn about ourselves, what we do, what we don't do, why we're doing it. And that's where the change can happen, right? There is a certain aspect where we want to assess our future as well, right? Because that's where we have our goals and our dreams, right? And a lot of unfolding and blossoming is actually to bring our dream into the now. So what does all of that have to do with female leadership? Just, I cannot find my dry eraser sponge, so I have to do it this way and just kind of get the thing dry again. There we are. So this idea of female leadership, and I am borrowing the word lead from Ingela Larson Smith. I originally did all the online courses, created all the online courses for Ingela online, because before she met me, she was only teaching in person. This idea that we can be the lead, that we can be the lead mare, and that the stallion has a job of procreation and protection. And how does the stallion go about procreation and protection? Well, the stallion is in the herd for about 1.5 to 2.5 years until a bigger, bolder, more bodacious stallion comes along and through fight, right, to battle, takes over that position. That is designed to create a consistently rejuvenating gene pool, because otherwise we would have pretty soon brothers and sisters breeding, right? So nature has set up the stallion for procreation, for the battle, and for protection, right? So the stallion protects by putting himself between the herd and the scary thing. If anybody observes the Alberta Wild Horse Society on Facebook, they have a video where a bear is actually following the herd and attacking the herd. And you can see how the mares push the babies away and they're leaving, and the stallion puts himself between the mares and the babies and the bear, and he chases the bear away. It's quite the fascinating video to watch. Hi, Julie. The stallion might also do something like creating a barrier around the herd, right? And so this is used in round pen training. Rounding up, pushing the herd forward, pushing the herd away from the scary thing. That is all used in traditional and natural horsemanship training. Now, what's important to know, and while the horse industry is using it, it works because the stallion does it. So horses understand. Oh, I'm sorry, Penny, you had a hard time finding it. I'm glad you're here, though. Horses understand dominant language. This is really important to know. And I just talked this morning with a lady that found my residual attention workbook and was raising her hand for that. And I said, so tell me a little bit more about you and your horse. And she said, well, one of the things that I can tell you about my horse is that he was kind of pet for several years, and then the teenager of the family wasn't horse interested, so the family decided to sell him, put him in a sales livery, and he was pushed pretty quickly through a regiment program. And the people were nice, they were kind, and the structure of the program seemed to help him. my when I feel into the situation, so I do two things, right? I go about what does the horse industry usually do at a sales yard? They get the horse quickly for sale. They get the horse to behave. They get the horse to do walk, trot, and canter, and have manners, right? As quickly as possible because time is money. When I feel, so that's the mind part, right? That's the brain, the knowledge, the facts that are happening in the horse industry. I always feel into the situation as well. And I can feel that the horse was going through a pressure and control program, and that the horse can function to some extent in that regiment because dominance is clear. This is what we do. This is what you better do not ever do. Right. So there's that clarity that horses find comfort in. And the idea that clarity, when we're looking at clarity, right? And we're using also consistency, right? That gives certainty. And if we're relating this to what we're going through in on our beautiful blue planet right now, we have very little certainty. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos happening, a lot of fear mongering. And that's when people become unconfident. So certainty certainly helps with a level of confidence. Now, what's happening with this particular horse, the horse can function on the ground with her human, but he is not confident while riding. So he went to another trainer for 10 weeks. So the horse had stability for a few years with the family. Then the family didn't want him anymore. Then he was put in a sales yard, which is a high pressure situation. No matter how nice those people are, high pressure situation for the horse. The horse loses everything that he or she knows, everything. Friends, Luna, friends, known environment, her people, everything is suddenly gone. And they're on their own as a prey animal in an environment that they don't understand. And the human says, and I'm going to get you ready for sale. Then he's being bought and he gets to know his new human. And then the human has issues with the horse and says, okay, I want to keep the horse. I want to do the best what's possible. I can't fix that. So I'm going to send you for 10 weeks to the trainer. So now the horse had just settled in maybe and gets sent off again with somebody else that now is again in the business of fixing the horse because that's what she's being paid for. And there are nice people out there that do training stuff. I'm not saying that's necessarily all terribly bad. However, there is a goal of the horse has to go back to the human, and I have to get the horse to a place where the human can handle the horse, and I have X amount of time. And 10 weeks is already pretty nice because some people think that should take 30 days, high school education in 30 days. And then the horse comes back to the human that they previously had met. And in my opinion, there will always be a fear in the horse. Now I have to leave again. And so the more consistency, the more clarity you have, the more certainty you can provide, the easier your horse's life will be. So now we've said, right, well, dominance is clear, dominance is consistent. But there is one aspect missing when it comes to dominance and certainty and clarity and consistency. The horse doesn't feel safe because the human is attached to the outcome. So as the lead mare, our main goal is safety. And that helps the horse to be confident and helps us to be confident. And then we can add something, little sprinkle, right? We can not only do that, but we can empower our horse and ourselves. Clarity, consistency leads to certainty. When you start with a new program, then we have a lack of knowledge, right? Because you don't know what the new program is going to be like. You're looking for links, you're looking what the classroom is like, right? You're looking where are the printouts, you're familiarizing yourself with something completely new. And Stephanie Burns, Dr. Stephanie Burns calls that the silly bridge of learning. And we all go through that, right? And the key is when we finally say, okay, I've had enough of, things not working and my horsewomanship not working and my life not working. I want change. And in order to stick with this unpleasantness, right? Because there's a certain discomfort in not knowing, as we just talked about, that we stick with this discomfort of not knowing and learning new things is that you have a big enough goal to make it worthwhile. And I call that the BBWG, the big, bodacious, worthwhile goal. Because otherwise you're not going to stick with it, right? And we're like, yeah, this is kind of nice, but now I've got, oh, look at that, social media. I wonder what XYZ says. Oh, Netflix tonight. I should watch that movie. Oh, my friends are going out. I should do that. It's so easy to get sidetracked from our goals, right? And Colleen says that makes me regret selling Chica. Yeah, I never quite understood that, honestly. But it's tricky, right? We make decisions, and then we have to live with decisions. And part of what we're doing this weekend is, or not weekend, these 2 days, is that how can I make better decisions, and decisions that I don't have to regret later as part of unfold and blossoming. And I'm a big I'm big on, I never want to ask myself, well, what if I had done this? Or what if I had done that? Or I wish I had done that, right? when we have regrets, that's very, very tricky. And it's not always avoidable, right? But the idea of having a plan, right? Because with that big bodacious goal comes your plan, right? There's number one that you're gonna do, and number two, and number three, and so on, right? There's a whole plan. And when you go into the classroom, right, and you go into the book, you have your plan, right? Here, right there. That's the plan. That's the whole relationship reset curriculum. And the beauty in the membership is that through the homeworks that I'm giving you in the videos and in the book, you can customize this plan for you and your horse. And that's, I think, the biggest difference between all of those memberships that are out there that have hundreds of how-to videos, that students come to me and they say, well, I was in XYZ's membership and I still can't do with my horse what I wanted to do. And I've had people, come from programs that's worth thousands of dollars and say, I can still not, do XYZ with my horse. And, here I am. It's important that we fine tune this for you and your horse. And you have the choice between self-study. And there are some people that are amazing at self-study. I had a student in Scotland. She went through the entire program herself and made beautiful changes for herself and a horse. The majority of us, I include myself, I'm not a very good self-studier. So when I want to learn something new, I usually find myself somebody that can help and support me. And that's what the mentorship is all about, right? Where you send in the videos on a weekly basis, where you get your homework, where you get your feedback, and where you have the opportunity to fall back on that genuine connections part, because you have a community of heart-centered horse lovers that are all sending in the videos. And so we learn from and with each other. And the recordings, we have now over 1,000 hours of recordings where you don't see me doing it, you see other students doing it, and you see my recommendations and the homework. And that's where you can really hone your eyes and feel into the situation and really learn to apply the program at a much greater and more detailed level. I just wanted to walk with my horse on a lead after I spent thousands. Finally found Petra and we can now walk together. I cried the first time she walked with me, said Jill. I remember, so it sounds so easy, I just want to walk with my horse. In Jill's case, right, this was a neglected horse that was damaged as a learner because of her life experience, and was at the same time a very confident, very bossy mare that had learned that her certainty and her safety came by protecting herself and by setting boundaries with humans, right? And those are tricky horses, because you have on the one side the unconfidence that the human has created, and you have the confidence that the horse naturally has. And they often show up as a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde personality. And I will never forget how Bougie was walking with Jill, and suddenly Bougie decided she would actually like to go back to the gate. And she kind of jumped up in the air and was ready to turn. And then she felt the feel on the halter. She had not yet taken the slack out of the lead rope. And her front feet came back on the ground and she continued to walk with Jill. When you have that, that's what walking with each other is all about. That your horse will truly follow you, and that they put slack back in the lead rope. That lightness through softness that we talk about in Lead Mare Principle number 5. that is an amazing feeling. And it's because Jill is so dedicated to her horses and to putting all those steps in there that are necessary, right? So this idea that the lead mare style comes from a place of providing safety, and it's not what the stallion would do. The stallion fights for safety, the stallion protects, the stallion pushes, the stallion rounds up, the lead mare walks off, right? And the entire herd follows. And there is the stallion, and he's following too. That's why with dominance, pressure control based training, you will never have your horse follow you. You will always be here pushing, pulling, rounding up, setting boundaries, right? You can't go here, you can't go there. But we're not going to have that connection that we heart-centered horse lovers look for. It's impossible. It's really easy to, when you think about that, right? If you have a boss that is a really cool person and that has the best intentions for the team, gets the entire team involved, and always shows up in a way that you're like, yeah, I can totally see that. Those are good decisions. I want to be like you. Why would we not want to follow that person? When we always show up that there is safety with us and there is comfort and there's confidence, and then that empowerment, right? That the horse can become a confident learner, because so many horses are damaged as learners. So learning becomes easy and fun, right? That's all going back to those lead mare principles. Now, most of the time what happens, and I chose that path too, right? So my mom, I took her about 4 weeks to pass on because they did an emergency brain surgery that she didn't want to have, but she didn't have a living will. And then I was told that, halfway paralyzed, my mom could have a quality life in the nursing home. And thank goodness she never woke up, right? There was a moment where I sat there and I felt between that rock and that hard place, right? And I'm like, this whole being a Parelli natural horsemanship instructor isn't working for me anymore. And then it took me several months to actually make the decision to stop. It took me until March. And I was desperately hanging on and trying to figure out how I could make that work for myself. And I just couldn't make it work. And so then I finally quit, right? And then once I had I put that stop there, then I was looking, okay, what else can I do? And I'm like, okay, don't want to do negative reinforcement training. I'm going to do positive reinforcement training. So I went to a 2-week clinic and with one of the top positive reinforcementship instructors. And I'm like, this is the way I want to go. And I walked away from this 2-week clinic and I'm like, this is not what I want to do either. And I talk about it in the book, right? There are right here, right? There is a whole list of things that, in my opinion, are problematic with positive reinforcement training. The biggest one, in my opinion, for us heart-centered horse lovers is that we believe that we have to bring something else to the relationship, that our horse will do things with us, play with us, work with us, hang out with us. And what that means is we believe we're not enough. Have to bring something into the relationship. I have to motivate my horse. Why would my horse want to do stuff with me? And the majority of positive reinforcement trained horses have a sour attitude. Look at the facial expression and look at the body tension that most of those horses have. Not all of them. There are some people that are really good at it, and they can literally use positive reinforcement training to create relaxation in the body. And I still see tension in the mind and in the spirit and in the emotions. And food is not something that horses share. They're not like dogs. They don't hunt together and then have a meal together. Unless you have displaced behavior, where you see those cutesy Facebook videos where horses eat hay and then through the bars, pull the hay out and share hay and stuff like that. It's pretty sad. People laugh about it. It's not funny. That's prison talk. So this idea that horses do not share food makes it a very artificial way to connect. And if your horse's comfort and confidence is not up to par, food isn't important, and you might not even be able to use food as a training method. Stephanie Burns used to work with Pirelli. She is Australian, and she has her master's in adult education. She wrote a book, Move Closer, Stay Longer, which I can recommend for anybody that has confidence issues. She's also, she has great humor. She's a very funny person. I love her. I love her dry humor. And her teachings around human learning is very astute. And when you look into, for any of you who are Pirelli students, the red level 1 pack and the blue level 2 pack, that was created with Dr. Stephanie Burns' input. This addressing all learning styles, having something that is for the kinesthetic learner, for the audio learner, for the visual learner. That was all Dr. Stephanie Burns. And that idea of the silly bridge of learning that we have to overcome in order to get what we want, that is one of her expressions. So the lead mare, she doesn't use food. She doesn't push, she doesn't prod, she doesn't round up, she doesn't use food, she doesn't use control, pressure. This idea that we create safety for our horse, right? That's the most important part. I'm gonna go back to that. And so that's where the 5 lead mare principles come in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? First of all, we need to be, and in the beginning, we're gonna become the lead. And I talk more about that. And then we look at healthy boundaries, which we heart-centered horse lovers all have trouble with. And that's where your greatest learning opportunity lays, right there. The mini and micro thresholds that nobody talks about in the horse industry. People, as a matter of fact, thresholds will tell you to push through them. Triple X relaxation strategy. My social media relaxation strategy. My social media was like, hey, what's this all about? This sounds like sex. I never came up with that idea, right? When I saw that, she did. If you have the same thoughts, I didn't have the same thoughts when I came up with that. It simply is you start with relaxation, you go back to relaxation as necessary to end with relaxation, right? That's why it's called 3 times. And last but not least, this idea lightness through softness, right? What we talked about with Bougie and Jill, that Bougie was up in the air, felt that feel on the lead rope and said, oh, I guess I can't go over there. I'll keep going with you, right? You are enough for your horse when you show up like that. Treat's optional. And I like to see them as gifts. And we can also use food in our inventory to gauge our horse's level of relaxation. Because feeling comfortable and confident and feeling safe often comes before the horse wants to eat. And you can see in the way the horse chooses to eat the level of the relaxation, and it can help us to make take a clear inventory. Okay, I'm gonna everybody can unmute themselves if you do have a question and you want to just chat, or you can just pop it into the comment section. Anything that I've talked about, anything that you made notes of. Do you have any questions right now? Anything you'd like to share? Any aha moments, right? Any blinding flash of the obvious? Wow, now I get it. Feel free to do so. And sometimes you have to percolate and have to sit with stuff and just kind of mull things over. And that's totally okay too. And the questions show up on the next day or a week later or a month later, or you're out with your horse and like, oh, I remember Petra talking about that.
So Petra, this is Kathy. How does the fact that the horse is traumatized in the past affect so much how much you're gonna be able to make progress right now? Because I've got one that when I was 18 months old, it was run through a fence by dogs and had surgery and still has scars. Then it was sold and it had been shown in 4-H in the halter classes, but the way it was worded, the next person thought it was trained to ride, tried to ride it in barrels and spurred it and beat it because it didn't know what to do. And then this other kid bought it and wanted me to retrain it for him. When I worked with her, she was out in a pasture with another horse with no shelter. I don't know how much food other than grass to get her to even move. I had to stand and put tension on the halter at one angle for like, oh, several minutes to get one step and then the other way and get a step. There was a round pen. I worked with her in the round pen and I was able to work with her, but I was using the, right thing, easy, wrong thing, hard type stuff and the typical horsemanship stuff. And I was able to work around with her. But yeah, she had been so abused. Then after I was working with her, I ended up living with having her at 3 different boarding places because I didn't have a lot of money. So I boarded one place to help 2 kids go through their beginning 4-H, then a second place, another 2 years, take those kids through 4-H, then move and actually pay to board in a boarding place. But he was also training camels, and she did not like the camels at all.
Yeah.
So, and then now I brought her back to my husband's home farm, but she's all by herself. And
Yeah.
that's almost, not having other horses with us. And then while we're here, the first few years I rode really well all around the fields between the the lanes between the fields and the back roads. But then there's coyotes out here in all these little small woods that's every half mile. And one jumped out of the corn and bit her in the leg. So now when she smells coyote, she's back like start all over training. And that was when too I was like you hitting the glass ceiling, that the training I was using wasn't working and she was looking like she was shut down. And how much does all that make it that much harder for me to try to, through your program, make connection?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a majority of horses, right, have quite a traumatic life. And that is certainly, lots of layers. I had my pony Mini Cooper got attacked by the neighbor's dogs in Pagosa Springs, and if my other neighbor wouldn't have gotten in between, they would have taken him down and killed him. So it's very traumatic. Um, quite wow, a coyote attacking a horse. That I've never heard that. Right, it's pretty extreme. In general, right, when we're looking at um, resolving trauma, right? What we have to start with is that the horse comes out of their shell and feels safe with us. And so this whole idea of, most programs start out with groundwork, and you go in a round pen or you work in the arena. And what we have to do with a horse like that, we have to just start from scratch. That's why it's called the relationship reset program. And a lot of it will have to happen with undemanding time. This is going to be your biggest and where you can make the most deposits is really undemanding time. And that is tricky for us humans because, we have turned into human doings and we feel like we need to do stuff, right? And it's really that undemanding time that will bring the biggest change. Now, it's not just that we don't do anything with a horse, it's the way we go about it, right? And a lot of it is how we show up during this undemanding time. So,
Yeah, clarity on that, because I know I did things like I put my garden right on the other side of the pasture fence and another part on the other side of the paddock fence so I could be there near. But as I'm understanding the program, that's still me doing something somewhere else, and that isn't the undemanding time.
so I like the idea, right? I like the idea that your garden is close to your horse and that you're just in the proximity, right? And I can do other things, but I can include my horse in my bubble, for example, right? And that is that, that to me, if almost would feel like, another horse in the herd, and they're just walking and eating and walking and eating, and they're in each other's bubble and they're connecting through that. I did a little video on my Facebook profile. Was it yesterday or the day before? I was about 150 feet away from Sari, and I was just turning around, walking back to the house, and she noticed me, and she stopped eating, and she walked a little bit away from the feeder, and then she stood there with her head high looking at me. And I'm like, oh, I wonder, right, whether I can help her from the distance to find relaxation in her body. So what I did was I put, instead of, thinking about going to the house and my focus being there, I brought my focus back here. I brought my energy down into the ground. I made sure that my body was relaxed. I was kind of cocking my leg. And then I had a really soft look at her, and I imagined that she could soften up that area in her pole where I could feel the most tension by, being alert, right? And I kind of softened that area up in my body, and I took a deep inhale and exhale, and I started blowing raspberries. And that video, it's like a minute long or something like that. And at the end, you see her putting her head down to the ground.
So what, if I look for that video to watch it, is there a name on that, or you can maybe post it later?
Can just hop real quick. Let me just there we go. So bye. No, not bye bye. Let me find my feet real quick. This is so funny. Okay. So, you
See
see,
the date. Relaxation from a distance. Okay, but it's under the Petra site.
yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
and I can pop it in the Guardians of the Horse group too. But you can see, so Sari, two horses, right? Navi, mom is eating at the box, and Sari is standing there. And at that point, I had already a little bit, I stood there already, and she had kind of started to bob her head. And then I thought, oh, I'll pull the phone out and I'll film the rest of it, right? So her head wasn't as high up anymore. Give it a moment. I'm talking. So she's pretty intently looking at me, and this is all I'm doing. I'm dropping my energy into the ground. I have like a little video going where I see her head bobbing down and going to the ground. I focus on that area in her pole and soften that up. I do the same thing with my body. And here in a moment, I'll bring the camera back and her head goes down. And those are things that to me is just very gently checking in, right? There you go. See how she's starting to lick and chew and the head goes down. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of, that's the kind of interactions that we want with a horse like that. Very, very
Okay.
low
So,
key and focused
so that part up there,
relaxation.
because I didn't know if that didn't count as undemanding time. So that can work if I kind of keep an eye on her and then notice when she notices me and then do my focusing.
Yeah.
It doesn't just mean time in the pasture paddock with her.
Yeah, we can certainly, just walk around and just being the same vicinity, especially when a horse doesn't feel comfortable in the human's presence. And we're starting to figure out how far do I have to be away that my horse is totally fine. How far do
Okay.
I have to be away that she doesn't feel alert? Because some horses will feel alert in the human's presence, right? So that can be undemanding time, and we're just kind of finding if this is my horse, right? And I'm finding the distance, where can I be with my horse needs to have her own bubble. Where's that edge of that bubble where I can be that my horse just happily munches and can find relaxation? That can be, for example, undemanding time. When I'm with my horse, I will always remind my horse that, hey, let's be relaxed together. Most
Yeah,
horses,
I do a lot of your blowing raspberry, deep breath blowing raspberries.
and I look while, when you go in the book in the latest version, you have you have the quick checklist, but you have this whole long 3-page checklist, right? Where it goes
Oh,
through everybody.
when was that? Because I downloaded it a while back. Do I need to re-download it? When was the update?
That probably maybe a couple months ago. But yeah,
Okay, maybe
there
I'll
is
look for it. What page is that?
um I have not labeled the newest version because I will put I have one more chapter that I'm
Where?
putting in. But when you go to residual tension, it's a whole
Okay, so
chapter about around
I'll
residual
look
tension.
if
It
I have
starts
those.
with the science, and then it
Okay.
talks about the hyoid apparatus and what happens.
Okay, I don't, yeah, I gotta re-download. I don't think I have those.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can add those pages. Work in progress. There's one more chapter that I will add, and
Yes.
then it won't be changed for a while. But everything
Okay.
is going to have to be around relaxation. And so, as the you have the 5 areas of comfort and confidence that you will look at, where she's currently at, where you're at. You're looking at those lead mare principles, how you can apply those to her, and then you can start with a happy horse inventory. And the undemanding time is part of approach. And once you can do the approach and you can be close to her and she actually lets you in her bubble and you can be here with her, right? Then we can start doing other things. With a horse like that, um, becoming into the mentorship is gonna be so helpful because I look at the video and I tell you, this is what I see, this is what you're gonna do. And there is no guesswork and there is no U-turns and dead ends or anything like that. It's just really, really structured. So when you have a horse that is out of the extraordinary, which this horse is pretty traumatized, right? And there's probably a huge amount of shutdown involved. Or if you're not really good at self-studying, and if you just want to save time, say, hey, I'm going to commit the next 10 weeks to do really an intensive study, then the mentorship is really for you because it will help you to get there faster and with clarity at all times because I can help you with that. Colleen said Sassy's previous owner taught her the stretches with treats. And now every time I go to pick her feet up, she puts her head down between her front legs looking for the treat. Yeah, that's perfect example where we're creating a a pattern, and then the horse randomly starts to do things, right? It's the same thing when people teach their horse to side pass towards them. I remember that literally got run over by their horse when side passing towards the human was part of the program. Because the horse is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a treat when I come towards you, and whoom, human got knocked out of the way. I personally do not recommend carrot treats at all. Um, this whole idea of randomly stretching muscles, in my opinion, is not a good idea. Particularly, horses have already contracted muscles, and then you start stretching a contracted muscle. That just doesn't work well. You need to release the muscle in order for the muscle to come back to homeostasis, in order for the muscle to function properly and be stretched in a way that the horse actually needs. I don't do carrot stretches. When it comes to a horse having a pattern, right, that now the horse is offering, when it comes to like the nose coming in your personal space or the nose coming between the feet, it's really a matter of making space unavailable and being really clear about, no, this is not what we do anymore. Just every time she does, no, that's not what we do anymore. And find a different posture, help her find that, give her a little bit of scratch. This is what we do now. And then start again. If her head comes back down, this is not what we do. Okay, yeah, this is good. Scratch, scratch, scratch. And you're just making the thing that you don't want to happen anymore. You bring clarity to that. This is not what we do. Interrupt the pattern, and then you help her find a different posture, and then you reward that. Jill said, I sit in the pasture with the horses. We have taken naps together where I've had two of them lay next to me and one stood over me. I feel like this was only possible because I sit with them and do nothing but be with them. One time while I was sitting down in the pasture, Bougie and Serendipity came over. Serendipity laid down and then flat out, and Bougie took a while but laid behind me. Even though it was very cold out, I stayed until they were ready to get up. Yeah. Yeah, I remember laying down with my horses and waking up, and um, Cash had eaten alfalfa, and the green drool was dripping on my face. So yeah, she was standing right over me, and I was sleeping. It's a drop, drop. That's the kind of thing, right? When horses lay down with us out of free will and free choice, that really means that we have created that feeling of safety, right? That is a huge, big compliment. And when Marie and I don't know, is Marie here? I know I've seen Helen. Yeah, Marie is here. Marie and Helen were here for the retreat. We worked with one of my rescue mares, Jojo, and we were able to facilitate the lay down as a group, dropping our energy, imagining that it could happen, helping her feel safe, seeing her doing it. And she actually started pawing, and then she rolled, and then she laid down, and she actually rolled over to the side and slept deep sleep. So it's absolutely possible. And those are those kind of things that we need to have before we ever go in the round pen and work on walk, trot, and canter. That's why you have, there is a reason why I created the steps in this sequence, right? We're doing in the beginning, this is mostly taking inventory, observing your horse, undemanding time. This is learning about the principles, practicing them, applying them, undemanding time. Then we're going into those everyday tasks, right? This is set up to, this is basically, it kind of depends on how much time you have, but we're looking at getting these things done in a matter of a month or two. Sometimes it can take 3 months, depending on where the horse is down here. Sometimes it can take longer if the horse is really traumatized. And sometimes we might start doing things in action step 4, where it's about relaxation in movement, right? That is all about movement, finding relaxation in movement, finding rhythm, relaxation, interconnection in movement. We might start there in order to get to some of those tasks down here, but that's where we have to customize the roadmap for you and your horse, right? Okay, do we have anything else? Good. So let me pull up my iPad so I don't lose my train of thought. Why my program is not natural horsemanship. We've talked about it already a little bit. I'll create a list that kind of gives you an idea, and you will, if most of you, once in a while I have somebody that comes to me and said, I don't know what natural horsemanship is, but most people come from the same journey that I had, right? That idea that we did natural horsemanship and then we kind of hit that glass ceiling, or we realized that it was really control and pressure and we didn't want to do that anymore, right? And then we're looking for something else. And a lot like me, maybe you have to take in the detour to positive reinforcement, and you've realized it wasn't working for you, and now we're here. So why is my program so different, right? Did I reinvent the wheel? So when we're looking this whole idea, right? Where is my little black one? I erase it. I think it's that one. Who did it for? Ah, fell on the ground. So here, natural horsemanship, NH, as sometimes people say, stallion. Here we have the lead mare, right? And all the wonderful things that we're doing as the lead mare. in natural horsemanship, you have escalating phases, right? In Parelli, you used to say phase 1, 2, 3, 4. Phase 4 was effective. Suggest, ask, tell, promise. The fly, the mosquito, the blackbird, the eagle, things like that, right? It's escalating until, you know, the horse does what we want it to do. And that's why it's dominant, right? That is a typical dominant way of going about it. So here we're not doing any phases, right? We have communication. And we're looking at our horse's feedback, and we're addressing the feedback and the feelings. And we're coming from a perspective of using intent, energy, body language. And we're more interested that our horse understands us, right? This is all about understanding versus getting stuff done. Boundaries are being set in a dominant way, for example, with a backup, right? Whenever somebody in a horse group says, my horse pushes into my personal space, my horse bites me, nips at me, people say, oh, you know, back it up, back, 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 back. It's very dominant. What happens with an unconfident horse, you scare the horse. And what happens with a dominant horse, they might start to argue with you, right? And they come from a perspective of, oh, really? You want to be dominant? Let me show you what that looks like. And then you have a horse that comes at you and that tries to outmaneuver you and outsmart you. A lot of natural horsemanship people, they talk about respect and how the horse has to respect the human, right? And we're coming from a perspective that we need to earn respect, right? And I talk a lot about honoring versus respect. And that's also a term that Ingela used. And to me, it feels like when my horse honors my personal space, that is what I want to feel. And it comes because of how we show up. We're not just expecting respect, but we're earning it by how we show up. It's all about us, right? I don't think Tracy is here. It's not the time of the day that works for her, from New Zealand. But she said the other day, I'm realizing in the end, it's all about me, right? And she has a very, very complicated horse that is extremely dominant. And one that, like my Sari, and we have my horse Sari, Luca, and Carmen, I think, is here, right? Yeah, Carmen is here. And Nevada, her horse Nevada. They all have, and you know what comes to mind right now, which I never thought about it before, they all have Spanish blood in them. How interesting. Luca has Andalusian thoroughbred. Sari has Andalusian Percheron. Nevada is Portuguese. So how interesting. They have a possibility to like have this threatening energy. And the only way that I can describe it is that that energy grows and they're looking down at you and it feels like that you're just a little dwarf and they can stomp you at any split second. It's very intimidating. I haven't met many horses that can do that. But I experienced it with Sari in the beginning before I brought her home when she was still at the previous owner's place. And feels very intimidating. that comes from this place, the human being dominant and the horse saying, oh, really? Let me show you what dominance looks like. I can squish you if I want to any split second. This goes along with the fact that everything is task orientated, right? And here we're looking for relaxation. And out of that relaxation, we can actually do anything that we want. In Pirelli, we used to say love language leadership, right? LLL, love language leadership. Now it's love, peace, understanding. When you can create a peaceful environment for your horse, a prey animal can so appreciate that. And aren't we all looking for peace? I'm running out of space. Let's see. Most of the time, natural horsemanship starts in the round pen in the arena, right? And all this groundwork, when horses don't even know what work is, works for us humans, right? Because we have become human doings. But we're looking at the happy horse inventory from the moment of the approach, right? Happy horse inventory, moment of approach. And we're working our way through this with the 5 areas of comfort and confidence and lead mere principles. We don't just go step by step, move your front end, move your hind end, back up, go sideways, run around in a circle. We don't do anything like that. Natural horsemanship does online and then applies that to liberty. So they restrict, comes out of a restriction, out of manipulation, indoctrination. There used to be a game that we used to play when I was still a Pirelli instructor. One person would be with a horse in the middle. All the other people with their horses would be around, and every time around them, and every time the horse would turn away from the human, we would shake our flags or our sticks, and then the horse would turn around and would look at the human, and then we would stop with negative reinforcement. And you wouldn't believe how excited I was to play this game until I realized how unpleasant that actually is, because when the horse doesn't want to come to you, and then there are a whole herd of a whole tribe of humans standing around you that make you come to your human, it's not very nice, actually. Took me a while to figure that one out. Miss Luna, you have a privilege being in here today. Means no barking. So here we actually start at liberty, right? We want to have free will, free choice. We're not restricting at all. Freedom, right? Liberty not as a discipline, but as the freedom to choose, as the freedom to happily and willingly follow us because of how we show up. A lot of times what you see in natural horsemanship is tolerance and compliance. And we're really looking for acceptance, right? And not just tolerance, acceptance, and always, always, always relaxation. Because what does relaxation in the end mean? It means that we have no brace, that we have no tension, that we have no stress, no anxiety, no fear. That's relaxation, right? Natural horsemanship does not necessarily look at proper biomechanics in the beginning, particularly. Mechanics are often lacking. For example, natural horsemanship was coined by Pirelli, right? The term comes from Pirelli, and now there are plenty of other people that do natural horsemanship, and you can see Pirelli shine through their program, right? Desensitization creates tension. Desensitization. Me and my Jinglish. So here we're doing genuine connections, interconnected habituation, right? It's very, very different. Habituation. Which one of them, when you look in the book, right? When you go to Happy Horse, task number 2, which is feeding. So that, for example, can be something that Kathy can work on with her horse, right? That we're creating relaxation during feeding times and healthy boundaries. A lot of times what happens is when we have a horse that is particularly frightened, we're wanting to be so kind and so soft and so sweet that we forget that boundaries are important. Your horse will not feel safe if you do not provide boundaries. Rhythmic motion, right? Getting started. That is interconnected habituation. In the book, there is the scan code here. When you're going through the classroom, you find more information on that. But that's where we're starting to create interconnected habituation. A little story about how powerful that is. So when I was a Pirelli instructor, I realized that desensitization, which was done with a stick and string and was called friendly game, actually caused brace because we did it at a standstill. And the focus was on the standstill. And it wasn't on healthy posture, right? So we do focus on healthy posture here from the very beginning. And that's like Kathy was saying, right? What can I do with my horse? I focus on the relaxation all the time. When you're looking at Jojo, for example, the before and after, her body posture was, stick horse. The head was up here all the time. And it was like this, right? Now, her head is most of the time like this. And we're getting this. What that means is it's not only good for the horse's body, but it also stops the brain from releasing stress hormones. The tricky thing about that is that in natural horsemanship, what you do is you put a halter on the horse and you have a lead rope and you pull the horse's head down.
Please, may I have a cup of coffee? Thank you.
Who has learned to pull on the lead rope and to lower the horse's head that way? I have. To me, as a prey animal, that is a very frightening thing to do for the horse. Just imagine yourself. You have somebody putting a halter on your head and they're pulling your head down when you're afraid. How does that feel? When I was at that positive reinforcement clinic, which wasn't so positive after all, there was a horse that was trained with natural horsemanship, could do all kinds of things without relaxation. And so the instructor said, your horse can do all kinds of things, but there is no relaxation in your horse. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm excited. I see it. How do we fix it? How did he do it? Stick, plastic bag, halter. Wiggle, 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 plastic bag, pull down the head. Horse puts the head down, stop the wiggle, wiggle. Horse puts the head back up, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Horse puts the head down, stops. And he said, the horse has to go through the dark tunnel in order to see the light. I made myself for 2 weeks watch these sessions every morning. What that did to me was that I had a crummy stomach every morning because it was twisted in knots watching this horse go through this exercise. Why did I do it? Because I felt I needed to watch it to be able to talk about it. Now, here's the thing. Did the horse eventually keep the head down and find physical relaxation? Hell yeah. Would you want to stand there and have a plastic bag being shaken in your face all day long? Did that horse ever find mental, emotional relaxation and connection to the human? Absolutely not. A big part of natural horsemanship is make the right thing easy. Easy, and I'm sure you can all finish that sentence, and make the wrong thing difficult. When I got Sari and Navi, my two Percheron Andalusian cross mares, I wasn't looking for another horse. I just saw their plight. The owners wanted to sell the daughter, 8 years old, and leave the mother by herself behind. And they had spent their entire life together. And they thought it was a good idea. And so I originally went there not knowing what was happening, and I thought I could maybe help out, facilitate, the transition. Once I got there, I realized what the situation really was, and I stood there, and Navi, the mom, was standing next to me, put her neck around me, and her daughter Sari was standing behind her and had her head on her mom's back. And I could hear Navi say, "Please don't leave me behind." Most people wouldn't hear that. Please don't leave me behind. And so that started my whole journey on herdboundness. And this is a big part, right, of having a horse. That they'd rather be with their friends, their horsey friends, than with us. Why is that? Because they feel safe with the herd and they don't feel safe with us. It's the only reason. So when you look at natural horsemanship, and I haven't looked lately, so I'm sure it might be something else. But back then when I looked, there was an article on top of the Google search, and there was a video on top of the Google search. And so the guy in the video talked about, he said, okay, so this is why horses are herd bound. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a good video, right? Because he says all the right things. And then he said, and this is how you fix it. Here's a herd. Here are all the other horses. You're going to ride over here, and you let your horse stand right here. Then you're going to ride back there, and you canter your horse around the herd and around and around and around, and then you ride away and you let your horse stand there. That's how you fix herd boundness. So sad. There is somebody that understands what's happening and still teaches, make the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult. And he was just running that horse around. As the lead mare, we honor the horse's threshold, right? We find, okay, here's my horse is totally fine. That is the herd. She's happy-go-lucky in the herd. But here's the fence, for example. Here's the fence. And I want to go over here. And so my horse kind of goes and goes, and she stops there. And now I have to pull and use my stake and whatnot, right? Instead of doing that, I'm gonna go to here. I'm gonna say, oh, you know what? I totally understand that you don't want to go any further. Let's go back there. Can we go back here? Oh, let's go back there. And pretty soon the horse is like, oh, I can do that. I still feel safe. So the next day, right, we're going to put that cone right here. And we're going to, oh, remember the cone? We go to the cone. We go to the cone. Remember the cone? We go to the cone. Remember the cone? We go to the cone. I had a student in Croatia. Her trainer said, your horse doesn't want to leave the property, easy fix. I stand behind your horse with a lunge whip, and every time your horse stops, I'm going to hit it on the butt. And she sends me a message and she says, is that a good idea? And I'm like, no. It took 3 weeks for her to be able to ride off the property on her own with this strategy where I'm like, of course you can feel safe with me. I'm not going to push and prod you and make you leave your herd. We're just going to stay where you're okay. And then the horse learns, oh, we're okay here. And then the cone becomes a marker. And every day, a few feet further, along with all the other things that you're doing with your horse that help your horse understand that my human is awesome because I always feel safe with my human. As your grandma used to say, people are stupid. It's so ingrained in the horse industry, right? And there are other things that are different, but those are some of the main points. Last but not least, talked about this pattern, this unconscious pattern that holds
Petra,
us
can I
back.
interrupt you for a second? It's Marie. Hi. I just wanted you to tell everybody that you made a fantastic short video on not disengaging the hind end as another practice
Oh,
in horsemanship so that everybody knows it's there.
yes, disengaging the hind end, another thing. Thank you for reminding me. I would have forgotten about that. Disengaging the hind end, another very normal natural horsemanship pattern. And it is not healthy for your horse. It really strains the SI joint. It also takes choices away, is about pressure, is about control, and is something that I do not use at all. And I have a whole video about why, and I might have posted it in the Guardian of the Horse Facebook group. I will, after the 2-day course, I will go back in the classroom and will start adding more videos. So I will look to see whether that's in there or not, because that is certainly one that you have to have. Very, very prolifically used in the natural horsemanship industry and not good for the horses at all. This unconscious pattern that we all humans we have it in us, Let me just find my notes real quick here. Where are they? Interesting. Should be on my computer and on my phone, but doesn't look like it. Give me a moment here real quick so that I don't lose my thoughts. Here we are. Okay. Something is happening in our environment, right? And our body is processing what's happening, right? So there's a process, and we're taking into account what this is, right? From there, we have an emotional response. A feeling. And from there on out, we have a choice, right? Because now that feeling creates thoughts. And those thoughts then turn into actions. And when we do actions over and over again, then we have habits, right? I can't remember the gentleman's name anymore. He was the husband from a Pirelli instructor, but he used to call this, we're going all to MSU. Make shit up. And I'm going to give you an example for that. Had a lovely boyfriend, really nice guy. Lots of abuse in the childhood and addiction problems, and that's what broke our relationship. I come from a household where I was taught people are nice, we help other people. We live close to an orphanage. My mom would always invite me to bring kids home. We would go shopping, buy food, buy clothes, buy shoes, have parties. My mom would pick all the kids up, pile them all in the Range Rover, drive them to our house, bring them back home. I had my friend Nini used to go with us on vacation, so I wouldn't be by myself. And people were nice. We had one homeless man in the neighborhood. He would come by once a week, and I would go out and talk with him, and I would always give him money that my mom gave me. And I never had a negative experience as a child to any larger extent with other human beings. I was very sheltered. I didn't go to town by myself. I lived in suburbs of Munich. We had a big property. I never went to town by myself until I was like 14, and that's when I started going with a friend. And we would go to the Pizza Hut on Friday, and we would always order the same pizza, the deep dish with the mushrooms and the spinach and the salad bar. That was our big outing once a week to practice doing things without my mom. And my boyfriend had a very horrible childhood, ended up in the wrong crowd, was at one point in prison, and came out and changed location to change his life. And when I met him, I didn't know that he was trying to get sober. I had no clue. That took me quite a while to figure it out. and he was sitting on my porch. And the event was somebody drove by and stopped at the fence and called out, right? And he came running into the house and was so upset. It was all about upset. And I'm like, what's going on? Well, that guy. And I'm like, okay, what did he say? Oh, I don't know. Somebody stopping, calling out at the fence, process, scared. The real true emotion was he was scared, right? And then the rest happened. What would I have done? I would have said, excuse me, I can't hear you. Let me come over. Can I help you? Are you looking for directions? And so this process happens in our everyday life. It happens in our horsewomanship. And right here, we have a choice. And when we make a conscious choice to look at what we're thinking, right, then our actions will change and we will create new habits. And that's why it's so important, right? Those 2.4 to 8.2 seconds. That's right. That's where we can make that choice because before we go off to the races. And there's certainly the opportunity to expand on this, right? And we'll talk more about what we can do to expand on this. That's just the average that I found when you search on Google what attention span we humans have in the now. And so this is something that will be an excellent opportunity to kind of mull over the lunch break. If you can come back in the afternoon, awesome. If you can't come back, don't worry about it, right? Don't worry about it. We will record everything. It will be in the classroom. For a moment, I thought I didn't press the record button. I'm like, oh, I did. No worries. I would have just filmed it again, but we have it, so no worries. We will record the afternoon as well. But this is something that I would like for you to kind of look at and take into your account as you're going through the day and start kind of watching. Make shit up, right? Make stuff up. When are we making things up, right? I made up that this is a nice guy at the fence and all he wanted was directions, because why would somebody stop other than that? My boyfriend was sure that the guy was out to get him, right? And that was his whole story. And when we're looking at, when you do the Change That Will Stick course in the classroom, right? There's one of the first things that I put in there. When I first created the program, I thought, okay, people don't really like to look at themselves. So we're going to talk about fun horse stuff. Let's talk about the happy horse inventory first. And then we're going to talk about relaxation in close proximity and that idea of rhythm and relaxation and connection. And then we're going to talk about rhythm, relaxation, and connection in motion. And then people are ready and they can do the fearless insight, right? Then we can have a look at ourselves. And I came to the realization that I'm going to do you a disservice when I set it up that way, because we need to be willing to look at ourselves and what we do and what we don't do if we want to change our everyday life, if we want to create positive change, transformation in our everyday life and in our horsewomanship. We have to do that. And part of it is, what has helped me is looking at the wonder and that miracle, right? Our body is a miracle. And having that wonder of, oh, wow. I wonder why I do that. I wonder why I do that. I wonder why I don't do that. And then we start to look for the root cause. And we'll be talking more about that in this course, about root cause versus symptoms. The majority of the horse industry will tell you, okay, so your horse bites you when you saddle. Tie the horse up. Tie your horse shorter. Disengage the hind end until the horse stops snipping at you. Give the horse a hot carrot. We heard that? I heard it. Smack the horse. Don't let him do that. Don't let her get away with that. I had a student in Alabama. She got her horse at the age of 4, had the horse for 10 years. Horse was 14. And she said, in the last 10 years, nobody could help me with this problem. My horse tries to bite me when I saddle. You know how long it took with a relationship reset program to stop that? Guess. Let's do a little poll here. How long do you think it took for the horse to stop biting? Just pop something in for the fun of it in the comment section. Horse was biting for 10 years. I just tied her shorter. I tied her. I put cross ties on her. One trainer told me I should smack her. One trainer told me every time she would bite, I should put her in the round pen and chase her around. All kinds of things. Kathy said a week. Jenny said 2 hours. Jill said 1 session. Helen said 3 months, 40 minutes. That's all it took. You should have seen the smile on that girl, teenager. 40 minutes. The saddling one-on-one sequence that was gifted to us by my mare Cash, who was a violent bronc when you would saddle her. I mean, she would be like a real bucking horse. And back then, my Pirelli instructor said to me, oh, just put her in the round pen, let her buck it out. When she's tired, you can get on. And I'm looking at that horse bucking and jumping 3 feet up in the air, buck, 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 buck. And finally she stood there. And I'm like, I don't want to sit on that. Oh my gosh. And look at my poor horse. She's absolutely mortified. There has to be something else, isn't there? No, that's all I can tell you. You just let her buck it out. That's just what she does. And so the saddling one-on-one sequence is the gift of Cash, because I wanted to help her and she helped me find that solution. And it is all about, Carmen said for me in Nevada, it took a month. And Nevada was biting way more aggressively than that mare. That mare was between nipping and biting. She wasn't like trying to take a chunk out of you. So it's all about this idea, right, that something happens, horse tries to bite us, right? Our body is processing it. We have an emotional response. Maybe I'm scared. Maybe I'm pissed. How dare you do that to me? I feed you. Do you know how much you cost every week? You shouldn't be doing that. People think that all the time, right? And then they go down the route, right? And right here we have that choice. And we can actually look at our horse's feedback. We can look at our horse's feelings. Same thing with other humans, right? I have to admit, I'm way better doing this with animals than with people. Still harder with people, damn it. But it can be done. And this whole idea of people say it with humans and people say it with horses. Oh, it's just the way it is. That's just who she is. That you can't do anything. You can't change people. But what we can do is we can change ourselves and we can change how we show up and we can change how we interact. And in that, you have a capability and the possibility to provide positive change for others. Certainly for our horses, really good chance with people too. And then, of course, they have to make their own choices, right? But then those choices will rely on you being very aware and very conscious of what you say and what you don't say and what you do and what you don't do. And there is that miracle. Our brain is a miracle. Our body is a miracle. We humans are total miracles. And how our brain deals with trauma and negative experiences and survival. And we don't just want to survive, we want to thrive. That's where we unfold and blossom. And that's why I use the peony for this course, because that is to me the best flower to really show that what I was talking about in the beginning, right? The day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And so peonies are some of my favorite flowers, and I don't know why my thing doesn't want to share that. Let me see. There we go. Because they open up so beautifully. Does anybody have any question before we're hopping into the lunch break? Okie dokie. I see you again at 2 a.m. my time, which is Mountain Standard Time. So that's a couple hours from now. Just sit a little bit with this and integrate it into your days and weeks that are coming up, and start with just observing yourself and see what's happening and what's not happening yet, and the idea that we can take inventory. This afternoon we will be talking, so mostly what we were talking about this morning comes under this idea of creating awareness, right? And this afternoon, we will be talking about understanding. So that means how to get ourselves and our horse into the learning zone, what we need for that. And in order to become the lead, we start out with being the guardian of our and our horses' safety, confidence, and empowerment, and how to do that. This idea that we need to have knowledge and eventually create wisdom, but we can always start out with benevolent decisions. That our intent, energy, and body language can be used to understand and learn our horses' language, and how we go about to use that and refine that. from the very beginning. That's another thing when it comes to natural horsemanship. You start out with gross motor skills and then you refine. And from my perspective, what you create is a beginner pattern that is really hard to break. So we start out from the very beginning with a refined communication. We used to teach lead, lift, swing, touch, level 1 Parelli. Lead, lift, swing, touch meant you lead with a lead rope, you lift the stick, you swing the stick, you touch with a stick. Tool, 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 tool. Zero intent, energy, body language. And what happens is the horse learns to watch the tool. And then you don't have the tool, and then your horse is like, what are you talking about? So we're going to learn all about intent, energy, and body language in the afternoon, how to become the guardian, and to be in the learning zone. And that is all under the umbrella of creating more understanding. So I'm really excited. If you can make it back in the afternoon, awesome. If not, do not worry. You will not miss out. You can watch the recording. And there will certainly be other times where we will be talking about this knowledge as well. And what the universe wanted you to hear and see will be made available to you. So thank you so much. I love it. We had a fantastic group, lots of people coming from all around the world. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Be blessed. And like I always say in the mentorship group meetings, with lots of love, because love makes everything better, including our horsewomanship. See you later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh,
Bye,
so-
Petra. Bye.
See you later. See you in a moment.
Thank you, thank you.